Good evening. Back again for another Friday night. You know, you can see that I'm a bit of a partier, talking about mathematics and reality and gaslighting. All the Friday night party conversations are happening here at my place this week. That was obviously a joke. I get that 10:30 on a Friday night talking about this stuff might mean that I need to get out a bit more often, but I'll have you know I've got a fine social life. It's just tonight I'm at home. So let's get down to it. So as the title says, if you go from gaslighting to what the hell is reality, that's definitely a part A. And what I mean by that is if the gaslighting doesn't mess you up for a bit, the rabbit hole of what the hell reality is certainly will top it off. And I remember at that point when I realised, I thought to myself, well, the injection of alternate reality, this real experience, I just didn't have my own reality. I remember thinking, well, what the hell is reality? Like, if someone can inject a reality, that must mean that, like, is there a reality? Or is there not a reality? How does reality work? Like, you know, this table here is pretty sure it's here. You know, this is still here. Like, how do you inject an alternate reality? Because, like, I'm looking at it, like, how is that possible? Well, it's certainly possible. And that's because, little did I discover, most of our stuff's made up. That's why I said, welcome to the party. That's a bit of a party. Because it blew my mind when I went through and thought to myself and read and did programs and everything I possibly could, watch videos. Like, I just went the whole hog. How much of our stuff isn't actually real? How much of our reality isn't actually reality? And how much of what we think is real isn't real? And it's phenomenal. Like, none of the words that I'm saying are real. That's weird. Like, most of the time we think that, like, when someone says something, like so-and-so, let's just use maybe a bit of a schoolroom or school time example. You know, so-and-so is not a nice person. We interact with it like it's real. That blew my mind. Like, and it's really had me question what we've developed in machine learning so far. And look, there is value to this. I get that this might seem philosophical, but there is certainly applications of this in general artificial intelligence. It's by far probably as I've said, I think previously, in my view, it's probably by far the most valuable thing. It doesn't take much to look. You know, people who are gaslight, you read the literature from the scientists who study the mind, and they say that people who do really, really high-level gaslighting, you know, generally sociopaths or psychopaths. So as far as I can gather from reading the DSM, for whatever the hell number it is, it's the Diagnostic Something Manual for the psychology people. That's people with a cluster B personality disorder, which is histrionic personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. So wherever sociopaths and psychopaths fit into there, that's where they fit. Those people generally gaslight. And it's fascinating because they're actually really, really good at, like, a lot of them are very, very good. Like, a lot of very successful business people are psychopaths. Well, they would at least fit the list of things that says you're a psychopath, whether they are or not, I don't know. But they're very, very good. And one of the things that was fascinating about that was that their ability to construct and believe a reality that doesn't actually exist, but they've constructed and projected outwards, has a huge impact on the other human beings. But it also brings into question this, what the hell is reality? It also brings into question how influenced we are by other people's realities. And that is something that I'll talk about a bit later. But we can just, like, let's just go down the rabbit hole of what the hell is actual reality. Like this, we call this, it even says in it, big nib whiteboard marker. That was made up. Someone made that up at some point. They made up big nib whiteboard marker. You know, we make up that this colour here you can see is red. It could be called ball. Who knows? And I get that it might not seem like a big deal, this conversation. Like it might be well, so what? Like we'll just call it ball. But it has huge implications for how an artificial intelligence learns. Like how do you teach an artificial intelligence about reality when we're not exactly sure what's real and what isn't? And I find that fascinating. More importantly, one of the really cool things is when you start to actually look at how we as human beings detect reality and how we differentiate between what's real and what isn't real. It becomes very, very apparent that we don't really have much of a great idea about what's real and what isn't real. It's very easy to think that we're walking through life, interacting with all these real things, never quite getting that we're interacting with a whole bunch of stuff that isn't. And if you look at how we detect reality, if we just step back to there for a minute, like we have a certain number of receptors or certain types of receptors in our eyes that allow us to detect the reality that we can see. But we don't see all waves. We see a very, very small subsection of waves. So we walk around like we can see reality, but in fact we can see a very select piece of reality. Even if we just took away all the things we make up and only looked at the things that aren't made up, we see a very select area. And it has me wonder how much of actual reality we do miss. And where does our detection of reality and our ability to make stuff up or be susceptible to stuff that's made up, where does it end? Do we blur it? You know, and as I was doing the work, like on myself, that self-reflection of pulling myself apart and seeing, you know, how I interact with the world in an effort to discover, you know, whatever I wanted, I guess, but, you know, in one of the areas would be the, you know, general artificial intelligence. It blew me away. I just was enthralled with it. I was just enthralled with what are we missing? You know, the number of people, when you sit in a room with people and you're doing the work and they've just never seen it before. I remember doing some work and reading some stuff and thinking, like, I'm a smart dude and I've just completely missed this. Like, how much of my life am I standing here thinking that what I'm seeing and what I'm perceiving is reality, and yet there's a whole different one right there. You know, it doesn't take much to walk into a room of a couple of hundred people and get that there's a couple of hundred different realities there with different skill sets to detect reality, just different skill sets to modify it. Like, I was telling my friend the other night that I can tell my friends from a distance away about how they walk. It's just an unusual skill. It's not like you can learn that. But if I see my friends from a really long distance away, based on the way they walk, I can name them. I remember this one day I was sitting up on this cliff and I could sit, there was just all these surfers out in the surf. And this guy, they were hundreds of meters away, and this guy got up and surfed along a wave, and I said, oh, that's Luke. I could tell my friend from hundreds of meters away. Now, maybe other people can't do that, or maybe there's only a certain portion of people that can do that. But it's fascinating. You know, I was remembering watching a movie, now I could be incorrect here, I think it was Melissa Mayer, was talking about, you know when you have asparagus, you know, and you pee in the toilet. Now, some people, it's a common genetic difference between people. Some people, when they pee in the toilet, they can smell funnily about their asparagus, like imparts a different smell on their urine, and other people just can't smell it at all. There's no concept of it whatsoever. It just, the smell of your urine when you've eaten asparagus doesn't exist. And it really brings up a great question, not only is what is reality, but then how the hell do we teach an artificial intelligence what reality is? Maybe the thing that makes us human is something we can't detect. And that would probably be a pretty interesting, well, I'd say argue is probably highly likely, because, well, if we could detect it, we'd already have general artificial intelligence, and I wouldn't be sitting on the other side of this camera. Well, maybe I would be, but I certainly probably wouldn't be talking about inventing general artificial intelligence, because we've already invented it. And that's the great game about this, is that if we can't detect it, this is like the most epic treasure hunt. I loved to detect treasure hunts as a kid. I still like them. Probably not so much as my kids, but I do like them. Who doesn't love a good old treasure hunt? So I ask you to consider what is real and what isn't. Now, one of the games that I used to play was the opinion versus fact game. And I'd drive around anywhere I went for like months and months and months on end to discover and think to myself, is that an opinion or a fact? Every thought that came in my head is an opinion or a fact. Every time I spoke about something, talked about something, interacted with something, is it an opinion versus fact? And the amount of facts that I found that I interacted with, like actual facts, like this thing is like I rarely talk about tables, I rarely talk about walls, I rarely talk about facts. I mostly create things that aren't real, and then I have a conversation about them with someone else, hopefully, not myself or the camera. It's like the epic rabbit warren. I find it unbelievably grounding. So we'll come back to this, and I get that there's nothing been solid in this, but this definitely for me is the foundation, like what is reality and how do we teach it? How do we emulate what we've got, what the pieces that we can see? If we can't see what makes us this, like smart to create cameras and lights and whiteboards and whatever else and big nib whiteboard markers, what can we see? What does that tell us? And so the next few every other video from this point forward will be about this. What can we see? I'm really looking forward to bringing it back to you. Thanks for tuning in. It's great to see you, legends.